Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 180. I really hope and pray this finds you doing well. You have your health and all your loved ones as well, and you're making it through these very unique times we are experiencing right now. I also want to thank all of you for taking the time to email or through Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, your best regards and wishing us, my wife and myself, my family well. I do really, truly appreciate that outpouring of thought and love. That's very special. So thank you so much for doing that. We need to do that all the time, but especially right now. Also want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera. Like most camera stores and businesses right now, they have changed some of their operation. You can order and drive up and do a pickup, which is, I kind of would love just to buy an 805.6, just to drive up and say, oh yeah, at the pickup window, give me an 805.6. That would be kind of unique. But on a serious note, Bedford is there to help us. Now, the PhotoCon for this month, of course, has been postponed till later on this year. But they have other things they are doing, trying to make things happen for us as photographers as we kind of do a little in-home photography lately. And they have this T-shirt, if you hadn't seen it on my website, that, support your local camera store. Because a camera store is more than just the owner in that building. It's a lot of them, and very special employees. And some of those people have become really dear friends of ours. So in these times, it's, I know, a challenge, but you get the moment, nothing else, say hello and thank them. And remember that if you place an order online, to use that discount, put in MOOSE, get that special discount. Still the same, free shipping, great service. They're there to help us, and we need help. Let's get into this week's podcast, the next step. As photographers, one of the challenges is we've mastered, this, that, or the other. We've bought this lens, got that body, and I've seen it happen more than once that photographers get that, and they get really comfortable, and then it's like, what do we do for the next step? How do we keep moving that ball forward? And right now, it could be even a bigger challenge when we have our general lifestyles being altered or changed, or, for some might feel like they're being stopped. How do we take that next step? Because, the next few weeks, month, just doing what we would normally do, gather with friends, go out shooting, it's probably not going to happen like it has. So you've probably seen so many of folks with this, that, or the other idea, which, it's great. Seems like it's a little being kind of flooding. So how do you take the next step? Well, first thing, remember to wash your hands for 20 seconds, okay? Take your camera, put it in the microwave, and nuke any bugs on it. And, do the rest of those things. And once you got everything prepped, let's dig in. So the next step, one thing that I do in the wintertime, and wintertime I'm referred to because that's typically when, you kind of get shut in. The weather doesn't, right? It's cold, snowy, icy, no sun out. You know what winter is now that spring's officially here. And one of the things that I have done, and I have done for, it seems like ever, even in the days of slide film, is I tend to go back and look at my images, starting with images that I've taken for a locale that I'm going to go and shoot at sometime in the near future. For example, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Wyoming working with bighorn sheep, and I just love bighorn sheep. I have no idea how many tens of thousands of photographs I have of bighorn sheep. There's a lot here. With that said, I go back and look at those, and knowing that I'm going to go see the sheep again, like I did a couple weeks ago, I went through those photographs and I said, okay, What did I do and how can I do it better now? Now you got to realize, and I've said it many times, that, the reason why I go through my images every night is so I can learn from that day what I have done right, what I've done wrong, and most importantly, what elements of story I didn't capture so the next day I can do better. But in this case, I actually go back a whole year, look at photographs, check out what's happening. It's one of the things I do to kind of take the next step to improve my photography. What's another thing? Well, one thing that I do, and I'm just telling you, I'm going to give you a heads up that if you do this, you could start down a rabbit hole you might not want to go down. So I'm just giving you a fair warning. I will look at some of my older, especially aviation images, and I'll look at those aircraft photographs. I'll think about them, and then, oh darn, I do it. I click on that smart object, and I open up that file in Adobe Camera Raw, and I say, can I make that metal shine a little bit more? Can I make, those colors pop a little bit more? Can I get rid of some of those dust spots that before I was just a little too tired and lazy to deal with? And I do that. And then what happens is, oh yeah, look, I see a subtle difference. It's better. And it's like, okay, there I go. So now there's how many pictures in this series? I sit there and I'll do the same thing to all those photographs one time, give them that little extra TLC. And somewhere in that process, I'll go, oh, you know what? I took these other photographs of this plane, blah, blah, blah. This time, I wonder if, and that's why I say go down the rabbit hole, because one leads to the next, to the next, to the next. But here's the thing, the files end up being cleaner. They're a better storyteller. They grab heartstrings a little bit better. And typically, when I do this, I find that the steps that I used before were way too many, too heavy-handed. I go back. I seem to do it with fewer steps, with a softer hand, and the photograph just comes out looking better. Now, I take this lesson and I apply it to what I'm shooting now, and that's the whole idea, And I take the next step and I go, okay. So when I go out and put that camera to my eye and I see that in the viewfinder, I sit there and tend to want to go and finish in my mind that photograph in post. Now, for critters, what you see is what I shot, but for landscape, aviation, other things, I do depend on Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop to make up for some of the deficiencies in the actual capture device. At the same time, there's times where I could bring out a little bit of drama in post that I could not at the camera. I mean, a classic example, you've got a cloud, and that cloud, the really great ones, they don't have a straight edge. They don't have a way in which you can put a split grad filter in front of that lens and work that magic in the drama because of the actual, line of the clouds. They swirl, they curve, they're on a slant, they have all sorts of character. And you can do that, though, in post. You can do it very easily these days. So I sit there and I go through images and I look at them and I go, how could I have done this better? That's probably the biggest thing for that next step. And, there's a lot of things going on right now, and taking your mind off some of that is really, probably a good idea. And taking that mind off it by going through your own reflections of life, which is another word for photographs, right? Your memories. And sitting there and actually thinking about, going back, thinking about when you took the photograph, thinking about kind of some of the thoughts you had when you took the photograph, looking at how that photograph today, after the fact, maybe months, years after you took the picture, is it really, at this point, does that photograph reflect the memories you have inside your heart? That's probably one of the best guides next to light to finishing. So when you're sitting there trying to think of, what's the next step you can take in photography, getting yourself ready to go back out shooting again, because we will be going out shooting again very shortly, maybe a little bit longer it takes to charge a battery or, empty a car and a computer. But, it's going to be really darn quick that we're out there working our craft again. So at these points in times, maybe some of the best learning you could do, maybe some of the best you could do to improve your photography might actually come from those photographs you have already taken. The lessons you can learn from yourself, which I still think that, we are our own best teacher when we actually ask the sincere question and give it a sincere answer that we listen to. So, something to think about as we keep moving this ball forward and keeping our hands clean and social distancing. With that said, just a reminder, there's a lot of things online that you can look at and review. There's all my YouTube channels. There's all my website. There's all my stuff there on Kelby One Training. And all that material is out there for you to help move yourself forward and take the next step in your photography. Just like everybody else, though, I am, in the house. I'm not going anywhere. And with that said, you might have questions from what you see on YouTube or read on the website or at Kelby One. So remember, you can always sit there and email me, and it's a real tricky email address, info, at, all lowercase, one word, Moose Peterson, that's me, .com. And just put in the subject line, I got a question, I need help. I need to talk to somebody. I got cabin fever, which, right? Cabin fever is going to start setting in. All you got to do is look at some of the crazy stuff on Twitter people are doing after a couple of days. Some people should not be left alone in their own home. Well, if you're one of those people, or you need to, have a question that you're working on in your own personal self-assignment, hey, reach out. I'll be happy to help. I'm here. And there's plenty of podcasts with ideas to deal with, shooting solo. So, hey, go back to some of the podcasts, see if they can't help you. Because, as a community, we will keep moving this stuff forward. Might not be the darkest yet, but the light is still out there. And as photographers, we know that light is special. We're going to keep chasing it. So remember that even during these times that make every click your story.